Steve Young had the impossible task of replacing Joe Montana, the greatest quarterback of all time, but instead of crumbling under the pressure, he became an MVP, a Super Bowl champion, and a Hall of Famer. Yet, despite his legendary career, some still question just how good he really was. Was he just a product of a great system, or was he truly one of the all-time greats? Let's break it down. For those who don't know, Young wasn't just good, he was ridiculously good. The man threw laser-accurate passes, ran like a running back, and made defensive coordinators wake up in cold sweats. He wasn't just a great quarterback, he was a human cheat code in the 90s. But because he spent years holding a clipboard behind Montana, people don't always give him the credit he deserves. Young's journey to the top wasn't smooth. He started his professional career in the USFL, remember that, before getting stuck on a dreadful Tampa Bay Buccaneers team that treated quarterbacks like disposable cameras. It wasn't until he landed in San Francisco under the watchful eye of Bill Walsh that his career took off. But even then, he had to wait his turn. When he finally got his shot, he didn't just replace Montana, he dominated. He won 2 MVP awards, led the league in passer rating multiple times, and had a Super Bowl performance so legendary that people are still talking about it. But just how good was Steve Young, really? Was he just another product of the 49ers system, or was he truly one of the best quarterbacks of all time? To find out, we'll break down his rise to greatness, compare him to his fellow quarterbacks, analyze how he impacted the game, and finally, look at his lasting legacy. So buckle up, because we're about to dive into one of the most underrated careers in NFL history. If you've ever thought of Young as just the guy who replaced Montana, this video is here to set the record straight. Spoiler alert, he wasn't just good, he was absurdly good. Steve Young's career didn't start like a fairy tale. It started like a bad horror movie. You know those quarterbacks who get drafted into terrible situations and never recover. Young was dangerously close to being one of them, but unlike most QBs who fade into obscurity after getting stuck on a dumpster fire franchise, he clawed his way to greatness. Before he was dodging pass rushers in the NFL, Young was a kid from Greenwich, Connecticut. Yes, Connecticut, not exactly known for producing elite football talent, but Young had something that set him apart: athleticism. The dude could run, throw, and probably play 5 different sports if he wanted to. Originally, Young wasn't even a quarterback. At BYU, he was buried on the depth chart behind Jim McMahon, and coaches thought his best chance at playing time was switching to defensive back. Yes, the future Hall of Fame quarterback was almost a safety. Luckily, he got a shot at quarterback, and from there, he turned into an absolute monster. At Brigham Young University, Young became the definition of a dual threat quarterback. He passed for over 7,700 yards and 56 touchdowns, while also rushing for 1,000 yards and 18 TDs. His senior year in 1983 was video game level ridiculous. He completed 71% of his passes, led the nation in passing efficiency, and won the Davey O'Brien Award. Despite this, Young didn't get the NFL call right away. Instead, he got a massive contract offer from the United States Football League, a league that was supposed to compete with the NFL, but instead collapsed faster than a poorly built IKEA shelf. Young signed a mind-blowing 10-year, $40 million contract with the Los Angeles Express in 1984. Yes, $40 million in 1984. The problem, the USFL was about as stable as a Jenga tower on a moving truck. The league folded after just 3 seasons, leaving Young stuck on a sinking ship. Then came Tampa Bay. Oh, Tampa Bay. If you think the Buccaneers were bad before Tom Brady, you should have seen them in the 1980s. They were atrocious. Bad coaching, bad rosters, and a quarterback situation that was basically just try not to get killed. Young was supposed to be their savior, but even Superman couldn't have saved that team. In 2 seasons with Tampa, Young went 3-16 as a starter, threw 11 touchdowns and 21 interceptions, and got sacked so many times that he probably had nightmares about defensive linemen. He wasn't playing bad, he was playing for a franchise that had no idea what it was doing. Enter Bill Walsh and the San Francisco 49ers, a team that actually had its act together. In 1987, Walsh saw past Young's brutal Tampa Bay stats and decided to trade for him as Joe Montana's backup. Young was getting a second chance, but there was one small problem. He was now sitting behind the greatest quarterback in NFL history. At first, it looked like Young might never get his shot. Montana was still in his prime, leading the 49ers to multiple Super Bowl wins. But whenever Young did get on the field, he showed flashes of brilliance. In 1988, he started 3 games while Montana was injured, including an insane 49-yard touchdown run against the Vikings that basically said, "Hey, I'm not just some backup." Then, in 1991, Young finally finally got his chance. Montana suffered a serious elbow injury that kept him out for nearly 2 seasons, and Young stepped in as the starter. And let's just say, he didn't waste the opportunity. In his first full season as the 49ers starter, Young didn't just replace Montana, he won NFL MVP. He led the league in completion percentage, touchdown passes, and passer rating, proving that he wasn't just a product of the system, he was a superstar. Still, Young had doubters. Some fans clung to the idea that Montana should return. Others thought Young wasn't clutch enough. The only way to silence them? Win a Super Bowl. In 1994, Young put together one of the greatest seasons in NFL history. He threw for 35 touchdowns, ran for 7 more, and won his second MVP award. Then in Super Bowl 29, he delivered a performance for the ages, throwing 6 touchdown passes and leading the 49ers to a 49-26 victory over the Chargers. Finally, the ghost of Montana was gone. Young had arrived, from a backup safety at BYU to a struggling quarterback in the USFL to getting obliterated in Tampa Bay. Young kept grinding. When he finally got his shot in San Francisco, he didn't just take over, he dominated. The road to greatness isn't always pretty, but for Steve Young, it was worth every setback. The next step, proving he was one of the best quarterbacks of his era, and that's exactly what we'll look at next. Alright, so we know Steve Young was ridiculously good, but was he just good for his era, or was he all-time great? The best way to find out is by stacking him up against the other legends of his time. Let's dive into the numbers and see how Young compared to his fellow quarterbacks in passing efficiency, rushing ability, peak seasons, and postseason performance. Spoiler alert, the numbers make a pretty strong case that Young wasn't just great, he was ahead of his time. For years, passer rating was the go-to stat for measuring QB effectiveness, and Steve Young owned it. He retired with a 96.8 career passer rating, which was the highest in NFL history at the time. That's right, when he hung up his cleats, no quarterback had ever been more efficient over a full career. For comparison, Joe Montana sits at a 92.3, Dan Marino has an 86.4, and Troy Aikman is only at an 81.6. Not only did Young finish ahead of his contemporaries, but he was also way ahead of the league average at the time, which sat around 75 to 80 during most of his career. Young didn't just throw, he threw accurately. His career 64.3% completion percentage was second only to Montana among QBs of his era. And unlike some modern day stat padding quarterbacks, Young wasn't dinking and dunking. He was running the West Coast offense to perfection, leading the league in completion percentage 5 times. He sits well above Marino, Elway, and Aikman once again in this category. Now, let's talk about mobility. Before guys like Michael Vick, Cam Newton, and Lamar Jackson made dual threat QBs popular, Steve Young was the blueprint. Unlike most scrambling QBs of the time, who ran because they had no choice, Young was different. He was just as deadly with his legs as he was with his arm. At the time of his retirement, he had the most rushing yards by a quarterback with over 4,243 rushing touchdowns and averaged almost 6 yards per carry. That is only about 700 yards less than Randall Cunningham had over his career, and with about 8 more touchdowns. Considering Randall Cunningham is considered the first true mobile quarterback, it's safe to say that Steve Young has never really gotten the respect he deserves when it comes to this. Young's ability to extend plays, escape pressure, and pick up first downs made him a nightmare for defenses. His most famous rushing play, that absurd 49-yard touchdown run against the Vikings in 1988, where he stumbled, broke tackles, and somehow outran everyone to the end zone. If Young played in today's NFL, where mobility is practically required, he'd probably be even more dangerous. If you want to measure a quarterback's greatness, you don't just look at their career numbers, you look at their peak. And from 1992 to 1998, Steve Young was hands down the best quarterback in football. During this 7-season stretch, he won 2 MVPs, led the league in passer ratings a staggering 6 times, led in completion percentage 5 times, and led the league in touchdowns 4 times. Not to mention, he won a Super Bowl and an MVP in 1994. Sure, other quarterbacks like Favre won 3 MVPs over this era, but also had interception numbers that were through the roof when compared to Young. A great quarterback is judged by how he performs in the playoffs. Some QBs rack up stats but crumble under pressure. Others rise to the occasion, and Young did exactly that. In Super Bowl 29, he absolutely dominated the Chargers. He had 6 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions, and threw for over 300 yards. While he didn't get to the big dance as many times as Joe Montana, he was also dealing with a much older, less stacked roster. This is the only stat he's really lagging behind anyone in, with Elway, Marino, and Montana having more total yards and touchdowns in the postseason overall. However, even with Marino having more yards, he doesn't have the Super Bowl ring to show for it. So where does Steve Young rank among quarterbacks of his era? Statistically, he was the most efficient passer of all time when he retired. He was a better pure passer than John Elway, a better dual threat than Brett Favre, and more efficient than Dan Marino. But Young's biggest challenge, his career didn't last as long as others. Because he sat behind Montana and dealt with injuries, his overall numbers don't look as big as those of Marino or Favre. Still, if you judge quarterbacks based on peak performance, efficiency, and impact, Young is easily one of the greatest to ever play the game. If he had started his career in San Francisco instead of Tampa Bay, who knows, maybe he would have been in the GOAT conversation. Alright, we've established that Steve Young had the stats to rival the greatest quarterbacks of all time, but numbers alone don't tell the whole story. What made Young truly special was the way he impacted games, his ability to master the West Coast offense, extend plays with his mobility, perform in the clutch, and overcome adversity. This wasn't just a guy putting up big numbers in a system. This was a quarterback who dictated the flow of games, kept defenses guessing, and could beat you in multiple ways. The West Coast offense was the brainchild of legendary 49ers head coach Bill Walsh, and it revolutionized football. Instead of relying on deep passes and power running, this system was built around short, precise throws, quick reads, and spreading the ball around. And if you were designing the perfect quarterback to run this system, Steve Young would be it. He had the quick decision making needed, the elite accuracy, and the mobility to make a play happen if the first read wasn't there. Some quarterbacks can put up huge numbers in garbage time, but disappear when it matters. Not Young. He thrived in big moments. In 1998 against the Green Bay Packers in the playoffs, he led a game-winning drive that ended with a perfect pass to Terrell Owens. And when he took the field in 1989 after Montana went down with an injury, he led a comeback against the Eagles where he threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. In fact, when you look at his clutch ability over his career, he had 17 different game-winning drives, proving that he was as good in the clutch as anyone else. I also think it needs to be said that Young's career wasn't an easy path. He wasn't supposed to be a quarterback in college. He started in an inferior league to the NFL, somehow survived playing in Tampa Bay, but he persisted in his belief he could be a great quarterback. Most players would have just taken the paycheck and rode off into the sunset by the time he got to San Francisco. Instead, he owned the opportunity he got, and the NFL was never the same. He never backed down or ran away when things got hard. Was Steve Young good? He was game-changing. If you put prime Steve Young in today's NFL, he wouldn't just survive, he'd dominate. His mix of accuracy, intelligence, and athleticism would make him one of the most dangerous quarterbacks in the game. At the end of the day, Young didn't just impact games, he took them over, and that's why he's one of the most underrated legends in NFL history. Steve Young's career wasn't just about winning games or putting up flashy numbers. It was about changing the way people viewed quarterbacks. He wasn't just a great player, he was a bridge between the past and the future of the NFL. He combined old school toughness with new school athleticism. He proved that a quarterback could be mobile, accurate, and a winner, all at the same time. Yet despite everything he accomplished, Young is often left out of GOAT conversations. Why? Because his career wasn't as long as some of his peers. Because he had to wait his turn behind Joe Montana, because injuries, particularly concussions, cut his career short. But if you judge quarterbacks based on their peak performance, efficiency, and overall impact, Steve Young was as good as anyone to ever play the game. Today's NFL is filled with quarterbacks who can both throw and run, but back in the 90s, Young was an anomaly. His style of play helped shape what the modern quarterback looks like today. His impact is simple. He redefined efficiency. The NFL has always valued strong arms and deep passes, but Young proved that precision, quick reads, and smart decision-making were just as deadly. Now, every elite quarterback in the league is expected to be efficient, and much of that traces back to Young's influence in perfecting the West Coast offense. In 2005, Young was inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, a first-ballot selection as he should have been. His impact didn't end when he retired. As a broadcaster, analyst, and mentor, Young has continued to be a respected voice in football. Young's legacy isn't just about what he did on the field. field. It's about how he changed the game for those who came after him. So after everything we've covered, where does Steve Young actually rank among the all-time great quarterbacks? I would say from 1992 to 1998, literally no quarterback was better when you look at the overall picture. I also think if he had managed to win another Super Bowl or two, then he definitely would constantly be ranked much higher on an overall list of impactful quarterbacks. I also think a lot of people look back on those 49ers teams and think it's easy to write off his play because the system was almost designed for someone like him. But let's not forget, in pure passing efficiency, he is still ranked top 10 all time. If we rank accuracy, he is still top 5 all time. And if we rank it purely on wins, he is still in the top 15. Even now, nearly 3 decades after his career ended, he still is ranked high in almost every important regard. The league has become much more pass-focused. Insane stats from quarterbacks are considered the norm now, but even with that, he still punches well above his weight class. If he had spent his entire league on a good team, or even in the NFL, who knows how good he truly could have been. He wasn't just a quarterback, he was a revolutionary. His legacy lives on in every mobile quarterback who extends plays, every precision passer who carves up defenses, and every player who refuses to back down from adversity. Was Steve Young really that good? He was better than people ever gave him credit for. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, I would appreciate you taking a second to press the like button and leave a comment down below. If you liked this video, then be sure to watch our last one, which is on your screen now. We post deep dives like this every other day, or sometimes even daily.